Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, you get us.
Loud and clear.
Okay, very good. I'm waiting on him to tell me to go.
All right, we're live on Zoom and YouTube.
I think they have to wait in that other room or someone can.
He said he's live on Zoom and YouTube.
No, there's no one in the other room, so it's ready when you're ready to go.
Just right.
Good afternoon. It is 6 o'clock. It's time to begin our regular meeting. I'd like to call all city council members of this meeting to please identify themselves. And I'll start with myself, Mayor Kilgore.
Lincoln Kazire.
Angelia James.
Marion Holloway.
Franco McGee. Brady Gordon.
Very good. Okay, and you can hear us well.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to our regular agenda. And at this time, item 1 is the proclamation observing June the 3rd, 2020 as a day of prayer and reflection. And at this time, I would like to read that. Proclamation observing June 3rd, 2020 as a day of prayer and reflection. Whereas the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis on May the 25th, 2020 was a horrific murder. Photographs of and the video of the crime were ultimately seen by millions of Americans. Whereas George Floyd's death was a result of a police violence and evidence systematic racism in our country. Whereas the citizens of Monroe and Americans, we cannot tolerate this kind of police violence or police brutality rooted in this systematic racism. Whereas in June 2007, the City of Monroe Police Department has been nationally accredited by the Commission of Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. Whereas the continued accreditation of the department shows the national approval and support of the policies, practices of the department, and acknowledges the positive interaction the department has had with the community. Whereas the department is highly invested in the community with multiple programs in the community with an emphasis on our youth, the Union County Public Schools, and our neighborhoods. Whereas the members of the department live here, work here, and raise their children here, and take an active role in the community. Whereas with its training and professionalism, the Monroe Police Department has been able to work with the community to ensure that the department's conduct reflects the standards that the citizens of Monroe expect of its law enforcement officials. Whereas Mayor, former police chief, and city council member, I am proud of the work of our police department and know that our officers and our department's leadership avoid racism and violence so evident in the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Whereas according to the advocacy group Mapping Police Violence, 1,098 American citizens were killed by police in 2019. Whereas I have worked with our police leadership, and I know that they also will not tolerate this kind of police violence and racism within the department that in Minneapolis led to the George Floyd's death. Whereas as acts like those that happened in Minneapolis not only harm innocent people, but they also deeply erode trust in our police forces, despite the good work of so many officers every day. And whereas I, as well as a member of the Monroe City Council, condemn the strongest possible terms police violence and systematic racism where it exists. Whereas it is recognized that the police officers are sometimes caught in difficult situations, that in accordance with their training causes them to initiate a de-escalation protocol where possible. Whereas every citizen should be afforded respect, protection, and lawful protection of his or her civil rights when may be necessary to enforce the law. Whereas in some cases, aggressive police practice negatively impacts people of color. Whereas I and the members of the Monroe City Council hereby acknowledge we do not support unlawful or brutal actions by any law enforcement unit. Whereas my heart and the hearts of a member of the Monroe City Council go out to Mr. Floyd and his family and to all other victims of police violence in this country. Whereas as citizens, we expect a full and fair trial of the police officers involved in Mr. Floyd's murder, at the same time support the rights of those who are peacefully protesting and honoring the memory of George Floyd and countless others that have been victims of racism and police violence. And whereas as citizens, we should work together with our fellow citizens to move forward in pursuit of justice, fairness, freedom, which is the basic of this country that we love. Now, therefore, I, Bobby Kilgore, as mayor of the city of Monroe, proclaim that Wednesday, June the 3rd, 2020, is a day of prayer and reflection over the events since Mr. Floyd's death as we work on the path forward together. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Monroe to be affixed this 2nd day of June, 2020. And I'd like to also add, I would like to see this proclamation delivered to the Floyd family by means of whatever is necessary to get it to them, and I'm sure our staff can work on that. But I would be grateful, appreciative, and I'm sure the city council would be also, if we could deliver this to that family. Thank you very much. Item 2 would be a proclamation observing National Gun Violence Week. And I would like to ask at this time, Councilman Anthony, would read that, please.
Proclamation observing National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas every day, more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average, there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas in North Carolina, 1,330 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 13 deaths per 100 people. North Carolina has the 24th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. And whereas gun homicides predominantly occur in cities with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 127 cities. And whereas cities across the nation, including in Monroe, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve are mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas the pandemic facing America has drastically impacted communities and individuals sheltered in place, which may result in situations where access to firearms result in increased risk in intimate partner violent gun deaths, suicide by gun, and unintentional shootings. And whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in the presidential inaugural parade, was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should be now celebrating her 23rd birthday. And whereas to help honor Hadia, the more than 100 Americans whose lives are cut short every day, and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 5th, 2020, the first Friday in June, as the 6th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods. And orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 5th, 2020, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 5th, 2020, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. Whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, I, Bobby G. Kilgore, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Monroe, do hereby proclaim and observe June 5th, 2020 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day, to encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Monroe to be fixed the second day of June 2020.
Thank you very much, Council Lady. Item 3 was public comment period. At this time, I have no written comments presented to me at this time, and so we'll move to consent agenda. Mr. Larry Faison.
I apologize. It helps if I take it off mute. Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. The City Council uses the consent agenda to consider items that are non-controversial and routine. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a council member or citizen with the consent of council. The consent agenda contains the following items. Item 4 is for the purpose of approving 3 sets of budget amendments. The first is to accept a donation to the police department from Advanced Driver Training Services, Inc. in the amount of $200. The second is required for a change order for a contract that reactivates a 15,000-gallon Jet A fuel storage tank pumping station in the amount of $6,025.66. The third involves 11 elements and adjustments that are detailed in your agenda packet and recognizes activity that was unanticipated and needed to maintain budgetary compliance and ranges from approximately $2,800 regarding an unemployment compensation claim paid for a prior employee up to approximately $970,296 to move the unused debt payment amount for the police headquarters to the project account for use to offset those costs. Item 5 is for the purpose of approving the budget ordinance to appropriate $650,000 from the Electric Division fund balance to the Electric Division Capital Project Fund for the construction of electric facilities for ATI Metals' new facility. Item 6 involves minutes reports lettered A through E. Items 6A involves a disbursement from City Council's discretionary fund, and there were 4 disbursements this period. And I'll summarize them for our listening audience. The first is Mayor Bobby Kilgore dispersed funds to Union County Crime Stoppers in the amount of $300. Councilmember Saluda Anthony dispersed funds to Heart for Monroe in the amount of $89. Councilmember Freddie Gordon, dispersed funds to Turning Point in the amount of $1,000 and to A Few Good Men in the amount of $500. Councilmember Franco McGee dispersed funds to Open Arms Community Outreach in the amount of $500, Scholastic Anglers in the amount of $250, Lynn's Haven of Hope, Inc. in the amount of $600, and Oasis in the amount of $15.16. Item 6B involves financial reports for April 2020. And as a summary, I'll highlight a couple of areas of fund balance as of May 5th. Total fund balance is approximately $33,447,000. Subsets of total fund balance include fund balance reserved by policy, which is approximately $10,681,000. Unassigned general fund balance is $4.3 million. Total assigned fund balance is $3.5 million. There are 3 sets of minutes lettered 6C and D. 6E is summary of contracts awarded, change orders approved, and city manager's settlement of claims. There are 24 contracts for the period totaling approximately $686,000. Item 7 is for the purpose of authorizing our assistant city manager and downtown director and myself, city manager, to sign the annual North Carolina Main Street designation agreement. Item 8 is for the purpose of approving the North Carolina Municipal Power Agency 1 waiver agreement, which most of us know as Electric Cities, to allow transmitting monthly and yearly documents electronically. Item 9 is for the purpose of approving the proposed service and purchase contracts involving approximately 17 vendors and to authorize myself, the city manager, to execute those contracts for fiscal year 2021. Item 10 is for the purpose of approving 6 resolutions. The first and second of those are to authorize the property's disposal as defined by General Statute 160A-266, methods of sale, where the fair market value of surplus personal property is believed to exceed $30,000. And there are 2 such items, a 92 Oshkosh aircraft fire apparatus and a 2009 International bucket truck. The third resolution is to approve the fiscal year 2020 equipment installment financing package with U.S. Bancorp Government Leasing and Finance. The fourth resolution is to request NCDOT to allow the installation of signs on Lancaster Avenue and NC 200 North, otherwise known as Morgan Mill Road, to commemorate Central Academy's 2019 and 2020 2A State Wrestling Championships. The fifth and sixth resolutions are to express appreciation to 2 distinguished employees for their service to the city of Monroe and to extend our best wishes on their retirement. And that includes Ms. Huntley, who retired at the end of April and had 29 years, and Ms. Henderson, who retired at the end of April as well and had 25 years. Item 11 is for the purpose of honoring a distinguished police lieutenant, William Franklin Kilgo, by awarding him his service sidearm and adopting a resolution in appreciation of his service to the city of Monroe. And item 12 is for the purpose of approving the dedication of a 30-foot right-of-way to the North Carolina Department of Transportation along the road frontage of 780 Charlotte Avenue, which will support the park expansion project at Beltonawanda. Excuse me. Item 13 is for the purpose of awarding sanitary sewer inspection repair contract to Vortex Companies in the amount of $468,168.69. Item 14 is for the purpose of approving tax releases for the month of April in the amount of $1,562.41. That was created by a change or reduction in value of the city of Monroe by the Union County tax assessor. Item 15 is for the purpose of awarding the contract to Philip J. Mungo in the amount of $237,572 for the purpose of replacing and installing electrical breakers, transformers, transfer switches, conduit, and wiring, and a number of other things to improve the reliability of the wastewater treatment plant. Item 16 will sound a lot alike, but it's for our water treatment plant. And it's for the purpose of awarding the contract also to Philip J. Mungo Company in the amount of $168,364 for the purpose of replacing, installing electrical breakers, transformers, transfer switches, conduit, wiring, etc., to improve the reliability of the water treatment plant. Mayor, members of the City Council, this concludes my summary of items placed on the consent agenda for your consideration.
To go to Anthony, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Oh, I have a question. Angelia James have a question. About item number 5, that's $650,000 that we are doing a budget amendment for electricity for ATI Metals. It's a new facility or something?
I can briefly respond to that. If there's going to be discussion, we need to move off consent, but basically ATI is expanding and process of expanding their operation. And this is to support basically to support their expansion.
$150 million
Okay.
expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Gordon, McGee, and Holloway, did y'all understand? You get all that by Zoom?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
Mayor, you have a motion, but I did not hear a second to Councilmember
Holloway will
Anthony's motion.
second.
Thank you,
Holloway will
Mayor.
second the motion of Councilman Anthony.
All right, I have a motion second.
Thank
Now
you, Mayor Pro Tem.
We'll call the roll. Councilman Anthony,
Yes,
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Desire,
Yes.
McKee,
Yes.
Kilgore. Yes, so that will pass. We'll move into the regular agenda at this time. Thing on the regular agenda as public comment period. I have nothing that's been submitted to me as public, for the public hearing comments. At item 17, and we'll go to item 7, zoning text amendment request, chapter 156.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Doug Britt in the Planning Department. And tonight I'm presenting a zoning text amendment to section 156.14, title definitions of basic terms.
Can you speak up, please? It's hard to hear you.
All right, staff's presenting a text amendment to the zoning ordinance tonight to 2 sections. Section 156.14, title definitions of basic terms, and section 156.110, titled table of permissible uses. Basically, the text amendment is to add a definition and add a category in the use table to allow for vocational schools. The staff is requesting the use table they'll be allowed by right in the GB and the general industrial district. And this text amendment was originally proposed by Economic Development, and staff was just processing it. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any at this time.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? This is a public hearing. Let me get the public hearing in. This is a public hearing. This is a public hearing. I have no one signed up to speak for. I have no one signed up to speak against. So at this time, do any comments? Question? or
Well,
comment?
Mayor, just please note that you will then just close the public hearing.
What do you say?
Mayor, if you could close the public hearing, Mayor,
Yes, okay.
thank you.
So then I move that the public hearing be closed.
Public hearing, all right.
Councilman Kazari.
Actually, Councilmember Anthony, the traditional practice of the council is the mayor can just declare it closed, and that way you don't need to vote on that. So if the mayor just wishes to declare it closed, that will be sufficient.
Councilman Anthony, I move to adopt the approving the land development plan.
Councilman Kazari seconds it.
I have a motion and a second. All right, Anthony,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Kazire,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Kilgore, yes. So item 17.
So then the motion to adopt ordinance amended section 156.106.
Second again, Councilman Kazari.
You second it?
Yes.
Give me a name.
Councilman Kazari.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Desire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
and Kilgore is yes, okay?
Motion to, so then Anthony, motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.98.
Will James second.
I have a motion and a second, okay? Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Councilman Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Desire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
Kilgore is yes. You do D?
She did. She did. She did.
All right. Item 18 is downtown grant, friendly loafer of Thai, that's Thai restaurant there. This is a public hearing. I do not have anyone to submit any for pro. I haven't had anyone to submit anything for against. And at this time, we'll take action.
So then Anthony, motion to adopt resolution awarding incentive grant.
Councilman Kazari seconds the motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Councilmember Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Kazire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
Kilgore, yes, okay.
Motion to approve incentive agreement.
Councilman McGee, second.
Who seconded?
Councilman McGee.
Okay, I have a second. Any, Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Jim Holloway,
yes,
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Kazire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
Kilgore is yes.
Motion to, salute Anthony. Motion to adopt budget amendment.
Councilman Kazire seconds.
I have a motion and a second. Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
yes,
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Kazire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
and Kilgore is yes, so that's approved. We'll go to item 19, zoning map amendment request for zone property located 1749 Williams Road. This is a public hearing, and I've had no one to submit for. I had no one to submit any against. So at this time, are there any discussion?
I make a motion to adopt
Well,
resolution.
somebody's gonna present it. Who will be presenting this?
That'll be me. We're on EC Customs, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Let me go ahead and share this screen real quick. All right, are you guys able to see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
yes,
All right, good evening. I'm Carrie Mindler with the Planning Department. Tonight, I will be presenting a zoning map and text amendment request for 1749 Williams Road. The request is to rezone the property to conditional district EC Customs in order to add retail sales as an allowed use in the general industrial district. At this time, I'll enter this ortho map for you. So the property is highlighted in blue. It's located off of Williams Road near the intersection of Nelda Drive. The subject property is currently zoned general industrial. The adjoining zoning is also general industrial, which is this purple color. Conditional district Union Baptist Association, which is across Williams Road here. And then conditional district 1717 Williams Road, which is a conditional district to the back of the site. The applicant is requesting a conditional district in order to add retail sales as an allowed use at this site. There is an existing 9,600 square foot building with paved parking on site. There are approximately 32 striped parking spaces on this site as well. As far as the neighborhood notification, we did post the property and sent letters to the property owners within at least 150 feet of the subject property 10 days prior to this public hearing. The land development plan indicates that this property is located in the here's the close-up of the site plan. You can see the existing building with the parking spaces as well. And the adjoining zoning map or the adjoining property owner map. The subject property has this star. This light blue is the 150-foot buffer, as well as the properties that were notified by letter, in addition to the sign that was posted on the property. My apologies on that. As I was stating, the land development plan indicates this property is located in the manufacturing, logistics, and aerospace/industrial area. These areas support manufacturing and production at a variety of scales, including assembly and processing, warehousing and distribution, bulk storage and utilities. Clusters of uses that support or serve similar industrial uses typically locate nearby. The proposed use is consistent with the land development plan, and staff is of the opinion that the proposed use is reasonable and in the public interest. Planning board did recommend approval of the rezoning from general industrial to conditional district EC Customs. This last attachment is just the future land use map. Again, this gray is the industrial future land use character area. Pink is the community corridor, and the yellow is our suburban character area. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is also on the phone to answer any questions you may have as well.
Good enough. Okay, this, as I said earlier, it's a public hearing. I have had nothing submitted for, I have nothing submitted against. At this time, council take action.
Motion to adopt resolution approving land development plan compliance.
You may.
Salute Anthony.
Second. Holloway seconds.
I believe that was Keziah made the motion and Anthony seconded. Holloway did as well, but I think we heard Anthony first.
That's good.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Anthony,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Desire,
Yes.
McGee, and Kilgore. Yes. Okay. You want to do me?
Motion to adopt ordinance amendment section 156.106.
Anthony second.
All right, have a motion.
Councilmember James, can you amend that to also include 156.98? There are two ordinances amending two specific sections.
Okay, I amend that to include section 156.98.
And if the seconder will agree, I believe that was Councilmember Anthony.
Yes, Councilman second.
Okay, I have a motion second.
Thank you.
Anthony,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Desire,
Yes.
McGee, and Kilgore. Yes. Item 20, D.
D.
D, motion to
D,
adopt ordinance amending section 156.98.
I thought they.
Oh, we did
included
that, we included that one, okay.
Yeah, you did that. It was consolidated because of the slide. So even though the agenda listed as two separate actions, you've done it both. So you're good.
All right, thank you.
Okay, item 20, annexation and zoning map text amendment request for 27.14 acres located along Secret Shortcut Road to be rezoned from City of Monroe R40 to Union County R40 to conditional district. Stewart Crossing.
Has requested to table this matter.
Okay,
So I make a motion, we accept tabling this till July 21st.
Anthony.
Councilmember
Holloway
Keziah,
seconds.
Councilmember Keziah, can I ask that you also say that it is tabled without further advertising?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And if the seconder, and I believe that was Councilmember Holloway, Mayor Pro Tem Holloway agrees, that would be appreciated as well.
I second that motion.
Absolutely, no
Okay.
doubt.
Thank you.
motion is second to table it. Anthony,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Desire,
Yes.
McGee. McGee,
He's muted.
okay.
Yes.
Yes,
There you go, Franco.
yes, okay, that will be tabled. Item 21, zoning map amendment request for zone property located along Secret Shortcut from residential low density 40 conditional district, Seeker's Landing. Who's gonna be coming? Somebody coming, they coming.
Yeah.
That'll be me again. Good evening. I'm Carrie Mensler with the Planning Department. Tonight I'll be presenting a zoning text and map amendment request. The applicant is requesting the rezoning in order to develop 172 townhomes. The total area of the project is 30.48 acres with 15.73 acres left as common open space. The density of this project is 5.64 units per acre. Just to orient you to the site, the property is highlighted in blue here. Is located south of Seacrest Shortcut Road, across the road from the former Caroline Assisted Living Facility. I believe it has been renamed, but the former Caroline Assisted Facility. The subject property is currently zoned R40. The adjoining zoning is R40, R20, and Indian Trail zoning. So this tan color is the R40 zoning district. This dark gray to the south is the R20 zoning district. And then this purple that you see to the west is Indian Trails jurisdiction. As I mentioned, the applicant is requesting the rezoning in order to develop 172 townhomes. Total area of the project is 30.48 acres, and the density of the project is 5.64 units per acre. Multifamily projects are required to provide at least 50% open space, which would equal 15.24 acres. The total area of open space provided is 15.73 acres, or 51.6%. The open space also includes a walking trail with benches and a paved area with grills and tables. And there's also a blue line stream on the site, which has been provided with the required 50-foot buffer on both sides. Just to take you through the site plan real quick, you can see the overall site plan, 2 entrances off of Seacrest Shortcut Road with the townhomes throughout the site. A little bit zoomed in for you. You can see the open space located here towards the front of the site. Here's the 50-foot stream, or the stream with the 50-foot buffer that I mentioned earlier. And here's just a little bit more zoomed in of the open space that will have the paved area with grills and tables. And then this tan line that you see is walking trails. Street trees will be provided at a rate of 3 per building, and each building will also have 2 trees outside of the right-of-way. Landscaping will also be provided along the frontage of Seacrest Shortcut Road. The townhomes will have a mix of 1- and 2-car garages. All interior units will have at least a 1-car garage, while the end units will have a 2-car garage. And all front load garages will have a carriage style trim and or hardware that mimics carriage style doors. Driveways will be able to accommodate at least 2 vehicles. There will be a 5-foot wide sidewalk provided on both sides of the interior roads throughout the development. And then an 8-foot wide sidewalk will be provided along Seacrest Shortcut along the property frontage. The development will have 2 full access entrances off of Seacrest Shortcut Road. There will be turn lanes provided at each entrance. Due to the number of proposed lots, the North Carolina Department of Transportation did not require traffic impact analysis for this project.
What materials be on that?
On the homes,
Yes.
I'll get to that in just a second with the elevations. If is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see, the city engineering department did not require TIA for this project either. But again, as I mentioned, there will be left turn lanes provided at both entrances. And this is just another zoomed in version of the paved area for the open space. Again, zoomed in for the left turn lanes into the development. All right, so elevations. The developers proposing the townhomes will be a minimum of 1,300 heated square feet. The proposed exterior materials will include a mix, as shown on the submitted building elevations, of fiber cement, stone, stucco, or brick. Vinyl will only be used for trim work, including soffits. The development falls within the Poplin Elementary, Porter Ridge Middle, and Porter Ridge High Schools for the 2019-2020 school year. The applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on September 11th of 2019 at the formerly named Carillon Assisted Living Facility. And a overview of that meeting is also in your packet for your referencing if you need. As far as the neighborhood notification, the 2 rezoning notification signs were posted 10 days prior to this meeting on the property. And an official rezoning notification letter was sent to all property owners within at least 150 feet, again, 10 days prior to the public hearing. Before you is the APO map or the adjoining property owner map. So the two subject properties have these stars indicated on the map. The light blue buffer indicates the required 150-foot buffer. And then all the properties highlighted in this blue color were the properties notified by letter. The land development plan indicates this project falls within the regional mixed-use center. Regional mixed-use centers attract people from beyond Monroe for shopping, entertainment, employment, or recreation. It is likely that these regional mixed-use centers will support the most intense concentrations of retail, employment, high-density residential, or other mixed uses. These areas typically locate near major highways to ensure ease of access for longer trips. The land use plan does not specify a maximum density for the regional mixed-use centers. The proposed project is consistent with the future land use plan, and planning board did recommend approval of the rezoning with the condition that vinyl be used for trim work only. And the applicants did agree to this and have made the appropriate changes to their site plan since the planning board meeting. And just to kind of go over this future land use map, since it is still a newer plan, this is the regional mixed use center, kind of the boundaries of the center. You can see the subject property is highlighted in blue to the west here. So basically these properties, you're gonna see more the higher density retail towards the center. And then as you work your way out, you might get more residential such as this project, eventually working your way out to like the single family detached kind of outside of the circle with everything else more intense towards the center of the circle. So I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant does have a quick presentation prepared. They're also on the line to answer any questions as well.
Little Anthony question, will on-street parking be permitted?
There will be a couple of on-street parking spaces. Let me see if I have sort of a zoomed in version. Not quite, but you can kind of see right here, there are some dedicated on-street parking spaces as well as this location. And then the driveways will be able to accommodate at least the 2 vehicles, and then there will also be garages.
Okay.
Angelia James, do they have a builder?
Yes, the builder is MI Homes at this time. And they are also on the line or online to answer any questions you have specifically about their product.
Councilman, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Councilmember McGee, what is the purchasing price for these townhomes average?
If that's okay, I would prefer to defer that to the applicant.
They kind of locked
I
us
would
out. I
note,
can't share my screen at this point, but if I can give my presentation and kind of lead into that, and hopefully that will answer a couple more of your questions. I'm thinking it must be the start video. Yeah, it still says I'm locked out by the host.
And before you present that, let me know for Councilmember McGee, you cannot consider the cost of or the price point of the potential units in your consideration. I know you're perhaps just asking that to get the information, but I just want to make sure that you and council are aware that the price cannot be considered in your rezoning decision.
Gotcha.
It's a little empty for information purposes, though I'd like to get that answer too.
Yes, ma'am. Carrie, you're going to start my presentation and kind of work through it now.
Yeah, council, I don't know if you have any other questions for staff at this time, or if you'd like for us to move into the applicant's presentation.
Councilman James, what's the stand on this proposal?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
What is the staff position on this proposal?
We're in support of the project. It is consistent with our plan, and we are in support of the project.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing this screen for just a second while I pull up Matthew's presentation, if that's okay with council.
So then I think we're ready to move on the motion without the presentation.
Yeah, okay, if you're not any other discussion, as I said earlier, it's a public hearing. I have not had anything submitted to me on paper or otherwise for or against. And at this time, we'll take a
Motion to adopt resolution approving land development plan compliance.
Councilwoman Angelia James, second.
Desire.
I have a motion and a second, Councilman Anthony,
Yes,
Councilman Gordon,
yes,
Pro Tem Holloway,
yes,
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Desire,
Yes.
Councilman Gee,
Yes.
Kilgore is yes.
motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.106 and including the motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.98.
Councilmember McGee, second that.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second. Councilman Anthony,
Yes,
Councilman Gordon,
yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
yes,
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Desire,
Yes.
Councilman Gee,
Yes.
Kilgore is yes. Did I get all of them? All right, I had a list of how long that. Item 21.
Thank everyone for tonight and going over this project. I just want to say thank you before I jumped off.
I told Larry this morning, I could miss one. He missed some. Item 22, fiscal year 2021 budget. That is a public hearing also. I have not had anything submitted to me in writing or otherwise for or against. Mr. Faison.
Mayor, myself or the staff don't have any comments to offer unless there were questions. We are prepared to offer a presentation, which basically would be very similar in appearance as what you received in your April workshop. But other than that, there's no comments, and we recommend to council that you adopt the budget.
Angelia James has some questions for you, Mr. Faison. I noticed in the budget for MD Aviation, the business was dissolved and there was some outstanding receivables of $19,318. Did the business go in bankruptcy? What was the stance?
I can, Mr. Faison, I can answer that. Councilmember James, the business basically is dissolved. It no longer exists. There is nothing for staff to go after. We attempted through multiple efforts to try to see what could be recovered. And essentially what you'd be reduced to is going after the individual. And we understand that they are basically judgment proof from an asset standpoint. So that is why we're not able to collect in that realm. We are continuing to monitor because we're still within statute of limitations, but it is admittedly problematic, but it is unfortunately the way MD Aviation carried out its business left us in that position.
I also have another question for you, Councilmember James. In culture and recreation, there's some restricted funds of $80,220. What is that for?
80,000 in restricted funds. I would ask if Lisa Strickland has an insight that she could offer some clarification.
It was on page 32.
Page 32 of the budget book, or page 32 of the agenda packet. I'm sorry.
Package, I think it's like 1,181 pages.
Yeah, it's like tremendously long. Let me get to page 32.
Yeah, it was 32 of 1181.
Culture and recreation. I'm drawing a blank. I'm wanting to say that was a donation, but I don't want to be wrong. Let me find out for you and get back with you and let you know what that is.
Councilman Anthony, I'm gonna move that we table the 2021 budget to, July meeting. So,
Ma'am,
I
I would note
The
that-
city has to have an operating budget to begin the fiscal year, otherwise July 1st rolls around and there aren't city operations and services that we can support and staff. We were not able to spend any funds in the absence of an appropriation to that effect. There's nothing that we would be able to do. So that would be highly inadvisable to table action on your fiscal 2021 budget.
question then, so that if we move this 22 down to the last, would that give you an opportunity to finance? Lisa, Amy?
I didn't understand the question.
Me either.
That's a question, and did you have, that hadn't been answered? And I'm saying if we move 22 down to
Make it last.
the last one, would that give you an opportunity to get that, to find your answer?
Councilmember Anthony, are you referring to the question Councilmember James asked about the 80,000 in restricted funds?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is for the manager or the finance director is, if the item were moved to after the legislative advocacy update from the league,
Yes.
would that give you enough time to get the answer to the question?
I would defer to Lisa. I'm looking at page 32, and I see an amount of 32,000 or 80,000 as a formal assignment, but I'm not coming up with the, if I can read it across, it's either involving Gilchrist Cemetery or driveway parking lot paving at the corporate hangar.
Typically, anything that is restricted either by law or because it was set up, given to the city, for a specific purpose. We usually can't reassign that because then we'd be violating the law. I just can't remember what the 80,000 was for specifically, but if it's a restricted revenue, it's because it was restricted for a purpose that had to do with culture and recreation.
Correct, yeah, and Councilwoman James, I understand that, but it didn't have anything listed like the other ones did, so that's the reason I was questioning.
And it was something that rolled over from fiscal year to fiscal year. It didn't happen during the course of the year, since there is no detail below, but I have to find out what that was. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Okay, I got another question, Angelia James. On page 79 of 1181, y'all talked about downtown incentive program. The actual budget and the original budget was zero, and then it was revised for $414,677, and actual year to date was $3,333. What is the balance for?
On page 79.
Of 1181.
So you're looking at the downtown Monroe expenditures?
Correct.
Okay, and so what was the question?
You had downtown incentive program, actual 2019, and the original budget for 2020 was zero. Then it was a revised budget for $414,677, and actual year to date was only $3,333. So the balance is for what? Is it that something?
Yeah, I haven't found what you're talking about.
I'm trying to find your answer. I think I know. I know we adopted an incentive agreement, and it's tied to the agreement. And we wouldn't pay it out unless the person fulfilled their requirements. Let me find who it was.
Was downtown center, wasn't that the CDBG grant or a historic grant that we entered into with,
Larry, if I may, I could maybe answer that. Brian here, Brian Bourne, Assistant City Manager. If I'm recalling correctly, and Lisa, you're probably thinking the same thing, That is the incentive package that was awarded for the Buggy Factory to Patrick Riley and that organization. They are still online to do the project, and hopefully they will initiate that sometime this summer. If that answers the question.
Anything else? Any other questions? Did you get yours answered, Mindy? Okay. Okay, if it's not any other questions, it's, like I said, it is a public hearing. And as I said earlier.
Mayor, just as a point of reference, this last question and maybe the one before that is focusing on our financials, not the budget.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Give me your name.
Councilman Kazire.
I have a motion.
Holloway seconds.
I have a motion and a second. Councilman Anthony?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Yes, sir.
Councilman James?
Yes.
Councilman Desire?
Yes.
Councilman McGee?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And we have a budget. Item 23.
No,
down-
sir, you have item 22C.
Motion
You still need the motion. Yes, ma'am.
Suzanne, the motion to approve financial plan for self-insurance funds.
Second. Councilman Kazire.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Anthony?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Yes.
Councilman James?
Yes.
Councilman Desire?
Yes.
Councilman McGee?
Yes.
Kilgore is yes, okay. Now, item 23. Downtown Amenity Beach Pro, who's beach? Program. I was trying to say beach program. Who's handling that?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brian Bourne, Assistant City Manager. Tonight, I'd like you to consider establishing a downtown commemorative bench program. And we would be naming the first bench. The program would be in place for 5 years and would include naming opportunities for the benches in downtown. A donor, a downtown business owner, has offered to purchase a bench in memory of an employee who suddenly died. The current provisions of policy GA06, naming of public facilities and lands in recognition of individuals, requires council approval for the naming and establishing of a program for future naming opportunities. This would be a program similar to what was adopted for the Theater and Science Center. It wouldn't require us to come back every time someone wanted to put a bench in memory of someone or naming one. We received the request from Matthew Belk of Better Car People. He will be making a donation for the cost of the bench of $1,650. In anticipation of other requests, we just like to establish this commemorative bench program in conformance to city policy GA06. This was since the General Services Committee did not meet. Chairman Len Kazaya agreed to move this to council due to that meeting being canceled during COVID-19. So staff would respectfully request that council approve the commemorative bench program and approval of the budget amendment for the donation of $1,650.
I'm confused because at one point you said have consideration of approving the program. Has the program already been designed? Seems like you wouldn't bring it to us until you actually have the program designed, and we actually know what we're voting on.
The program it's just putting a plaque in memory of a person on a bench downtown. That's the program.
Just one bench, or would be several benches?
It would be It would be any bench that's downtown now or any new that they would want to provide or sponsor.
Do we have any criteria as to, I mean, we don't have any information about it.
This Councilwoman James Bryan, if I could say so, I think when I was on Parks and Rec Commission, I think they put together some paperwork about naming of benches and trees and stuff like that in memory of others.
When they die.
Correct. So I think
It's just a simple little plaque that would say in memory of the person or whatever. It would be 50 or less characters. It's very limited. And the plaque is basically maybe a 3x5 or 3x6, very, very small. It's like you see in many other cities.
Yeah, my question is, do they have to meet some criteria? Do they have contribute something to the city, or it's just to Joe?
It's just they pay for the bench, they sponsor the bench and could put it with their name on it.
So anybody
can do this. Yes.
I think what Councilperson Anthony's asking, and I've got the question also, we're looking at 2 benches a block, 3 benches a block. How would they be spaced out? What's the future plan for benches, named for people or not named for people? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Well, right now, the benches are located in front of areas that the city owns the property. So some of our common areas, the little pocket parks in front of the parking courts or parking lots. This would expand that because I would think if a merchant is sponsoring it in memory of a deceased employee, or if they want to make a donation on behalf of their company and put the name in front on the bench, then that would be that would probably, they'd want it in front of their place of business. But we've avoided doing that right now.
I would think so also. Yeah, good idea.
It's a very simple program. It's not, I mean, other cities do it. No one has to have a list of accomplishments or deeds they've done. It's just to commemorate the memory of someone that died, an employee, or just commemorate their donation of donating the bench.
This Councilwoman James again. Brian, do you understand what Parks and Rec is doing currently with that program that they have for benches in the city?
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
So is it similar to that?
Yes.
So we do have something in place.
Well, yes, if you want to consider the same criteria as Parks and Rec.
I would consider that, Councilwoman James.
Brian, this is Councilmember Gordon. I don't want to belabor this, but is there, do we have a certain design? Are all of these benches going to be similar in nature, and other than the change of the plaque that you mentioned? And is there criteria for that already, or can I just find the bench I want and stick out in front of my business?
No, the benches, we have a specific design, a specific bench that we have throughout downtown and on the plaza, Main Street Plaza. There would be no choice in the bench, and all of the plaques would be the same, basically. It would be a bronze looking plaque with the wording on it. Just very simple. All conforming to, I would think, a single design standard. The challenge that I have to look at is a new bench. The plaque is applied at the manufacturer with the wording. How would we apply that plaque to existing benches? And if that could be done, or we could only accommodate this on new benches. Because this bench that's being proposed right now would be a new bench, and it would be placed in the vicinity of Better Car People.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
Salute Anthony.
I move that we move to approve the request from Matthew Bell to name that bench.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, salute Anthony. Going forth, I think that when things are brought up for our consideration, please do us the courtesy of bringing enough information. I'm not against it, but I never like to vote blind. I like to understand, how something is being done, what the criteria is, because I don't never want us to get in a pickle where someone may come on later along, not understanding what the criteria. People have asked us all the time, how can we do this? How can we do that? We have nothing to tell them what criteria it was, or anything about it. So that sort of leaves us naked. I'm not against it, but I am asking that when things are brought to us, please bring sufficient information.
I will do that, and I'll be glad to develop something for this and provide that to you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I do have a motion by who?
Holloway.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. Do I have a second?
Franco McGee, second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes, sir.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Brazar,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
and Kilgore is yes. So that will pass. That probably will pass. Okay.
Franco McGee to adopt budget amendment.
Motion to adopt budget amendment. So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Kazire to adopt the budget,
Anthony, second.
and I have a second by Councilman Anthony. All right, Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon, Councilman Gordon,
Are we on item 24 of the agenda?
No,
No.
sir, you're on 23 still. It's a budget amendment, which is the second part of the item.
23B.
That's
Motion.
thrown right in there. That's thrown in there with the bench program, huh? Okay. I
That's
must have missed
correct.
that. Okay, I must have missed that, so I'll say yes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Kazire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
Kilgore is yes. Okay. Let's see what we have now. 24. Item 24, resolution adopting Cabarrus Stanley Union Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's Ron Fowler, the Fire Chief. We have before you tonight a request to adopt a resolution adopting an updated regional hazard mitigation plan. The city's currently a partner or a participant in this plan, originally adopted in 2014. And this is the required update for the plan. Prior to 2014, counties and municipalities had their own individual plans. And again, in 2014, through coordination through the North Carolina Emergency Management, they began to develop regional plans just to streamline that effort and to make it a little bit easier to maintain those plans. These plans are required to for certain hazard mitigation grant funding, and also for certain state and federal assistance during disasters. So it is important that we maintain one. This update was coordinated by North Carolina Emergency Management in coordination with FEMA Region 4. There's no cost to the city. The state paid for the grant development cost there. This has not been before committee. The current plan expires June the 16th, and just because of meeting schedules, we had not been able to bring this to a committee for discussion. So that's the reason we're bringing it straight to council. I'll be happy to answer any questions that council may have regarding the updated plan.
Okay, council have any questions?
So no matter, does this plan deal with like, weather, hazardous weather? I see all the flooding and stuff and like the wind damage. You have something to do with like, damage from storms, and flooding, that kind of thing?
It does. It basically evaluates any hazards that are likely to occur in our area, and addresses each of those. And flooding certainly is one of those that is contained in the plan. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none.
Salute Anthony, I move to adopt a resolution.
Okay, have a motion, have a second.
Angelia James.
I'm sorry.
I second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second. Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Desire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
and Kilgore will be yes. Okay, that will pass. Item 24. Item 25, resolution amending interlocal agreement for countywide economic development services.
Councilman or Mayor, may I sit down?
Yeah, you
My
may.
Zo- My Zoom has been disconnected, so
You may.
this is the only way I'll be able to present to you. Mayor, Council, thank you so much. The City of Monroe and Union County in 2013 joined forces, combining the two economic development departments under the interlocal agreement. Since the joint EDC was created, we've generated over $800 million of new capital investment, nearly 2,000 jobs here in Union County and Monroe. Also, since that time, the efficiency gained by eliminating two governmental departments and the administrative costs that go with that, we've saved the taxpayers of both Monroe and Union County over $2.6 million. The first interlocal agreement ran from January 2013 to June of 2015. After the success of that first contract, the city and the county renewed the agreement. The second interlocal ran from July of 2015 to June of 2018. And it had with that 2-year extensions. So we are now approaching the end of the final 1-year extension, which concludes on June 30, 2020. The city and the county have not finalized a new long-term renewal of this interlocal agreement, so we're asking for a 12-month extension under the same terms as the existing contract to allow for time to complete the long-term interlocal agreement and to not have any interruption in economic development services to the residents.
Motion to adopt resolution.
Anthony, second.
Let me ask you, the council members on Zoom, did you understand what Director Chris Patay was saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Want to be sure?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion. Give me the motion again, please.
Motion to adopt resolution.
Thank you, sir.
Anthony, second.
And Ms. Anthony, second. Okay, Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes, sir.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Desire,
Yes.
Councilman McGee,
Yes.
and Kilgore is yes. So that passed. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you all.
Very good. Thank you for what you do. Item 26, we have a special guest with us tonight, a legislative update from the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Somebody wanted to.
Good evening, Mayor. Before Christine gets on, I just wanted, because it gives her a second to get ready, I wanted to note that at the request of Councilmember McGee and Councilmember Anthony, we were asked in light of recent legislative advocacy presentations by league staff to have the same presentation or similar presentation made to council, and also to discuss advocacy options for the council. It's in line with your legislative agenda that you approved back in May. And so assuming we have Christine on, who I see, I'm going to turn it over to her. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Kilgore and members of the Monroe City Council. My name's Christine Hybush, and I'm a grassroots associate with the North Carolina League of Municipalities. I'm here today to provide you with a legislative update concerning developments surrounding COVID-19 replacement revenue campaign. I'll follow that up with several recommendations for what you as a city council could do to help make a positive difference at the state and federal level through advocacy initiatives. Thank you so much to Councilman McGee for so graciously reaching out to the League team with this request for a presentation on this topic. Many thanks also go to, of course, Monroe City Attorney, Mr. Mujib Shah Khan, who helped coordinate logistics with our team at the League and has kindly provided some guidance and background information. Next slide, please. As you know far too well, we're living in trying times, and the COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be a tragic and earth-shattering event that's affected every facet of our personal and professional lives. Mayor Kilgore, Monroe City Council members, we are greatly appreciative of your leadership and your stoicism as you guide your community through these uncharted waters. Undoubtedly, you have been faced with a series of unprecedented challenges as you try to find ways to take care of the health, safety, and well-being of your community. Next slide, please. Of course, the pandemic has also greatly impacted municipal governments as revenues from sales tax, occupancy tax, and other sources have dropped precipitously due to job losses, a pause in retail businesses, and a decline in overall economic activity. We have heard innumerable anecdotal reports from our cities and towns indicating that these losses may significantly hinder their ability to provide important services to their residents. With the fiscal year coming to a close and of course the fiscal year 2021 on the horizon, many are finding it difficult to figure out how to best balance their budgets when many figures on revenue losses won't be available until next month. Next, please. Now, it's important to emphasize first and foremost, these losses have occurred through no fault of cities themselves. It's the pandemic that has caused these revenue shortfalls. Next, please. And we also know that 80% of all jobs are found within municipal borders and 75% of all retail sales take place within those borders. With these revenue shortfalls also comes a steep drop in municipalities' ability to invest in their communities. And next, please. Now, in terms of what the response has looked like from our state and federal legislators, as you probably know very well, earlier this spring, Congress passed the CARES Act, federal funding that was intended to help alleviate the effects of COVID-19, but it came with a lot of restrictions. The funding was only intended to use to cover expenses that are directly related to the pandemic. And the only direct allocation of money to local governments was for those with populations above 500,000 residents. That meant that only several North Carolina counties and the city of Charlotte received a direct appropriation from the federal government. Congress allocated additional funds to the state of North Carolina, and the North Carolina General Assembly was then tasked with sub-allocating these funds further. In legislation that was passed last month in May, the North Carolina General Assembly allocated $150 million of this federal funding to counties, with the option for these counties to share with municipalities, but there was no requirement for them to do so. Now, another $150 million was set aside in a reserve fund in case perhaps federal guidance should be shifted to be more flexible later on that CARES Act funding. Now, there is a possibility that CARES Act guidance could be amended to allow for greater flexibility, such that the funding could be used for revenue shortfalls. However, this change would not be enough because it would mean that the $150 million reserve fund that had been set aside by the North Carolina General Assembly would still be competed for by both counties and municipalities. And there would still be the chance that municipalities wouldn't get a cent of that reserve fund. Now, recently updated Treasury guidance that was released within the past week has caused additional confusion and concern, wherein some counties are now requesting that municipalities apply for aid through FEMA instead of requesting funding through the county. What we need is for Congress to pass a new bill providing for additional revenue direct to cities. Flexibility of the money that has already been sent is not enough because, as we said, the state and the counties will ultimately probably eat up all that has already been sent through. Now, back on Capitol Hill, there was some momentum on the House side for a special funding package. It was called the HEROES Act, and it would have allocated $125 billion directly to municipalities using a modified community development block grant formula. And so this sounded really good on paper, and the National League of Cities, our national organization, had placed a lot of hope on this bill. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has expressed concern that that money would be misdirected, maybe used to bolster pension funds that had already been in trouble prior to the pandemic start. And many Republicans at this time, both in the House and the Senate, are wary about providing additional funding without first seeing the impact of the previously passed funding packages. But really, the time to act when it comes to municipalities is now, because the longer that our municipalities suffer losses, the longer the economic struggle will inevitably continue. The NLC, again, the National League of Cities, has identified additional legislation that has some potential for replacement revenue, including a bipartisan Senate initiative that's called the SMART Act. Though the NLC has indicated that the SMART Act formula, the distribution formula that isn't really where it needs to be. According to our current intel, it seems that additional federal action, any sort of action concerning replacement revenue, will be wrapped up as soon as the 3rd week of June. So that's just a few months away. We are down to the wire right now. Now, the League continues to support the National League of Cities efforts, of course, but at this time, we're not necessarily directing or directly endorsing a particular bill. We're just continually highlighting and stressing solutions that will ensure that there's an equitable and fair distribution of funding that will aid municipalities in the most impactful way possible. If I may have the next slide, please. Now, the League has already worked to put together a number of federal initiatives. We've had some town hall style meetings with numerous US representatives, as well as Senator Tillis, that just took place last week. And we've also facilitated several op-ed and letter writing efforts. Now, particularly convincing the senators to support replacement revenues for municipalities is going to be crucial. This seems to be our greatest sticking point right now. Now, I'd like to go ahead and transition to the next slide and just talk a little bit about what exactly grassroots advocacy is, what you can do as a council to help further this cause. Next slide, please. Now, our public and government affairs team at the North Carolina League of Municipalities has been working to actively engage our cities and towns through a variety of outreach, including we've had an advancing advocacy webinar series that we held weekly through the months of April and May, and some of you may have been on that. And we also have an ongoing bulletin email as well that you probably know about that comes out on Fridays. We've also developed a one-pager document which includes important talking points on replacement revenue. I'll make sure to go ahead and touch on those points later. So what exactly is grassroots advocacy? I mentioned at the beginning that my role is as a grassroots associate. And what that means is my attempt is to be able to educate our members, that is leaders and staff of municipalities throughout North Carolina, like yourselves, about the crucial legislative developments pertaining to interests that affect municipalities, while helping provide you all with the tools necessary to ensure that you are able to advocate effectively. Now, the National League of Cities has established its Cities Are Essential campaign, and this is its own effort to organize efforts to reach out to federal representation. Our efforts at the League are in conjunction with this campaign at the national level, but we also work at the state level, of course, as well. Now, the NLC and we at the League, we have great relationships with our elected representation, but our message is made all the stronger and more potent when our legislators at the state and federal level are hearing from you, because you are the leaders and voices within your community. You can attest to what is going on the ground, and you know the ins and outs of everything from your budget to what people are seeing and experiencing. Our representation wants to hear those personal accounts and details. These specifics are essential to help paint a picture of the landscape in the coming months. Now, next slide, please. I would say that in what we've heard from at the League, the city of Winston-Salem is actually an excellent example of a way that a mayor and city council can work together and come through a unified voice in order to present a really intriguing and potent package of advocacy that is very streamlined and savvy. And so what this package included for the city of Winston-Salem was a letter that came from the mayor and council, charts that displayed data and anticipated revenue shortfalls, a resolution that was passed by the city council, as well as an op-ed that ran in the Winston-Salem Journal. And then they together packaged these materials and sent them off to key staff members on Senator Tillis's team, including his deputy chief of staff and one of his legislative correspondents. This collective action is a powerful way to ensure that the messaging shared is cohesive. It's coming from one voice and it creates a really strong narrative. This is a model that your city council, if you so desire, could also emulate through sending a letter to Congressman Bishop and Senators Tillis and Burr, laying out how revenue shortfalls are expected to affect Monroe's budget and what programs could be affected. The League is also helping coordinate other letter writing initiatives and is building coalitions with mayors in each congressional district. Mayor Kilgore has kindly agreed to participate as part of the 9th District initiative that we are facilitating. We at the League are happy to work closely with you all to help draft an op-ed as well and place it in local papers, again, if that would be of interest. Our team is also going to be putting out calls to action over the coming weeks. Importantly, together working on a way to perhaps coordinate efforts to call your legislators' offices is particularly impactful, especially if you know your DC or Raleigh delegation on a personal basis. Relationships right now are more important than ever. Do you know Representative Bishop, Senators Burr or Tillis, any of the North Carolina senators or the representatives? Please let us know. And even if you don't know them, now is the time to reach out in a coordinated manner and have conversations with them about why replacement revenues are so critical to help cities and towns thrive. If there's any opportunity to do so, make sure to coordinate these efforts amongst yourselves with Mayor Kilgore, your fellow council members, and of course, your city attorney, and then reach out to the League to ensure that everyone is on the same page. Now, if we could have the next slide, please. I'd like to touch on what that messaging should look like. These are some of the talking points that the League has assembled. They're also listed on the one-page document that I shared with Pete Hovanek as well. I'm not sure if he shared that with you all or not, but I'd be happy to distribute it as well in whatever appropriate manner. And so some of these talking points are as follows. As I emphasized at the beginning, cities and towns did not cause the situation they find themselves in now. A global pandemic did. This has been out of their control. Local governments play a crucial role in the overall economy. And this is something that we really would love to emphasize as we're reaching out, especially to our North Carolina representatives and senators. Cities are economic engines within the area, and any sort of delay in assistance to municipalities will inevitably extend an economic downturn. Additionally, cities are builders of that infrastructure that private industry depends upon. And then if we wouldn't mind going to the next slide as well. Thank you. Roughly 30% of municipal general fund budgets in North Carolina go towards public safety. Without state and federal help, there's a very good chance that cuts to public safety might be necessary. And additionally, of course, we see that there might be other services pertaining to public health and public safety that may need to be cut as well. Now, these talking points are meant to be a leaping off point where you, from your perspective as leaders within Monroe, can elaborate with specific examples that are particular to your city. Now, please note again that Mr. Shah Khan has requested that any advocacy messaging be reviewed by his department before being published or otherwise shared. But again, we at the League are more than happy to assist in any way, shape, or form to ensure that the messaging that is put forth is consistent and powerful. And Mayor Kilgore, members of the Monroe State Council, it's been an honor to be with you this evening. I appreciate your patience and your attention, and I look forward to any questions you might have for me. If we go to the very last slide in the presentation as well, might need to skip one more. That's my email address as well. If you would like to reach out to me, please do at any time. And I can also give you my phone number as well if you wish to call me at any point. That number is 703-508-0977. That's my cell phone again, 703-508-0977. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. And Mayor and Council, I just want to elaborate on one point Christine had mentioned, that what we do is, as you know, one of the items on your legislative agenda was the issue of dealing with lost revenues, both from a utility standpoint, sales tax, and additional revenues. So you've already agreed to look at that. What we would like to make sure we do is, I know you may be engaged now as a result of the fine presentation you saw. If you wish to, for example, reach out to our electeds, I ask that you make sure we know, because we want to make sure that we're aware of all the efforts taking place on behalf of the city, so that we don't end up in a meeting and find out, well, gosh, this council member was here and said X. And that we want to make sure that the messaging is consistent. You saw the great messaging points that the league has put out there. We're also having staff work on the issues of what have been the impacts, because when someone hears we've been hurt, they're going to ask you the next question. How much? How badly? What is it you're looking at? And those are items that we're still looking at. And as Christine pointed out in the presentation, some of the sales tax revenue numbers aren't going to be something you'll hear about until another month or so, because there's a lag between what we'll find out and what is distributed to us by the county. So I just want to make sure that if you're at all interested in those issues, please let us know. Please let me know. I know that some of you have been on some of the league calls. I'll be honest, I've been on every single one of those. And also there are all some other advocacy areas that we deal with the league that are not on some of those calls. So we're happy to do anything we can if you feel it will help the city, and as we move forward in this current short session.
Councilmember McGee, first of all, Christian, I really appreciate your coming aboard and doing the presentation. I thought it was very, very well done. But I would like to ask of council if we would like to mobilize and unify and actually come up with something that we can present to our legislature. Just like the other municipality had done, if we can come up with something like that to present, I think that'd be great if interested.
Well,
I
Councilman
agree.
Gordon,
I've lost the video of everybody. Now Freddie's coming back on. Go ahead, Freddie. I'm sorry.
no. I don't think it argue. It's an effort that wouldn't cost us a lot of money, but could bring some benefit. So certainly we should.
You got locked up.
Can't hear you, Freddie.
Freddie's speechless for once.
No, no one heard.
Freddie got stuck there, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. This must be happening. Christine was sort of getting stuck occasionally too, and certainly Mujib was as well. But I do agree. It's an effort that wouldn't cost us a great deal of money, but it can return something to the city, and we should enter into it, as you say.
All the way here, I agree. If we could, Najib, if you could help us push that forward. Christine, appreciate your help and the presentation tonight. Thank you, Franco, for pulling that together.
You bet, Mary.
Thank you, Christine.
My pleasure.
Information of how we can help with advocacy.
Very careful. Thank you, Christine, very much. Great presentation.
Yes, Councilman James, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's been my pleasure.
Okay. We move to item 27, closed session. And
I move to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes, section 143-318.1 A1 and A3 to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or the United States are not considered a public record within the meaning of chapter 132 of the General Statutes to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the city's attorneys and the city council, and to consider and give instructions to the city's attorneys concerning the handling of judicial actions, specifically in the cases of Eastwood Construction LLC and Eastwood Construction LLC doing business as Eastwood Homes versus City of Monroe and the state of Donald Allen Cloud Sr. and Donald Cloud Jr. versus the city of Monroe.
All right, I have a second, a motion, do I have a second?
Angelina James, second.
Motion and second. All right, all in favor, Councilman Anthony,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes,
Pro Tem Holloway,
Yes.
Councilman James,
Yes.
Councilman Bizarre, Councilman McGee,
Yes.
Gilmore is yes. We're going into closed session this time.